All right, guys, we're going to do a bit of an introduction video to coolant bypass setups. Now, the setup that I'm going to show you is for a VP44 24 valve, but for the 12 valve, it's basically the same thing. It's just except for where it hooks up to the thermostat housing is different. Other than that, it's the same. So, that said, let's get into talking about this thing and we'll see what's going on. This is the kit, like I said, for the VP4. I don't think anybody else makes them with the thermostat in them other than Fleece. I'm sure there's probably a knockoff company that does it, maybe, I don't know. I've had really good luck with the Fleece setup, so I've always just used the Fleece ones. You know, there's some things you can use knockoff and some things you just don't. And I like to try to help, you know. Fleece is a pretty decent company. I've dealt with them a few times. Never really had much for problems. I have had a couple problems that one we won't get into. But anytime I have had, the couple times I have had an issue, Chase over there, which I believe he's one of the owners, was more than happy to help. We got it fixed, no issues. You know, shit happens. It is what it is, right? So this is the setup. This is going on to one of my buddy's trucks, who we are building an engine for. So I figured I might as well just take advantage of having the kit, the brand new kit to unwrap. Yeah, but I am unwrapping it for him. Thanks, Bill. But he won't care. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe he does, but I'm unwrapping it anyway. But it does come with some swag, a little Fleece koozie. He'll use that. My buddy Bill likes to drink the beers. Not that he's worse than I am. It does come with a nice hose. There is more than one hose option when you're buying, so just take a look when you're buying them. There's more than one hose option. I believe you can get one that's a stainless hose. But I could be wrong on all of them. All of them may not. Now we got this stuff out of here. We'll just do a quick rundown. I'm not going to take this piece out. I'll show you where it is on my shorty. That one is a different setup, but it'll give you an idea where this goes. And then the 12 valve one, maybe I'll insert a picture, or I'll just show you where it goes. It's not really too big of a deal. But so this needs to go on the back of the block. All of them are going to be the same. Like how they bolt on is the same. Not all of them are the same. The 12 valve and the VP44s are the same, and this it has a 180-degree thermostat in it. At least they used to. Yeah, 180 degrees. Really nice machined piece. I think they're nice anyways. Anodized black, have an O-ring on them. They come with the bolts. They come with a little bit of stuff, a few little things. They come with they come with the bolts to hold it on the back of the block. They come with longer bolts for your housing for the 24 valve ones. Little piece of Scotch-Brite so you can clean up the bore for the expansion plug, frost plug, whatever you want to call it. So let's just go over to my truck here quick. I'll show you that, and then we'll talk about why you should have one. So you can see on this, it basically just sandwiches right in here. Don't mind, this thing is super dirty. It just sandwiches in between the head, your thermostat housing. For some reason I couldn't think of the name of it when I was videoing. And then, like I said, the bolts just go down through there, and then it hooks up and then runs down. So like I said, this one is a pressure style one, which you probably can't see. And then if for that style, it goes down below the block, right? So that just shows you, like I said, that just shows you where it goes. I think what we'll do, I'll show you on bills when we're doing bills, when we put it into the block and when we do it, because his engine is out, because we're rebuilding it. I'll show you how to do it, give you a quick rundown. And now it's much easier to do it with the engine out. If the engine's not out, you will have to pull the transmission out. So just be forewarned on that one. I guess I shouldn't say you have to pull the transmission out. Every time I've ever done one, I've had the transmission out or the engine was out. Never tried to put one when he is in there, but man, I don't think you would. You might, but it would not be a good time. But like I said, I'm not 100% sure on that one. I could be wrong. Some trucks you might be able to, or if you have the cab off. So the benefit of running one of these things. Now, this is a debated thing. I know lots of guys have argued with me, and when it really comes down to it, if you want to run one, run one. If you don't want to run one, don't run one. It's pretty much that easy. I think they're beneficial, but what do I know? I just build engines. So basically the theory behind it, and Okay, I'll give you the argument that people give me is that you're going to starve the head for coolant. No, you're not going to starve the head for coolant. The water pump moves way more volume of water than the engine needs. Even with the thermostat open, it moves way more volume than it needs. And then also take into consideration the cylinder head has restriction in it. Also does the head gasket has a restriction in it as well, to stop flow of coolant flowing in certain spots. So there's always pressure in the block, always pressure in the block, thermostat open or not. And the system's pressurized. So I'm not sure how you're gonna starve it. Anyways, basically in a Cummins block, there is nothing, if you side cut a block or section a block up, there's nothing that makes the coolant, like it flows in the side of the engine. Here, let's just look at this engine right here. All these engines are the same idea. I realize this is the 12 valve. Now all these engines are basically the same. This is a 12 valve, but it gives you an idea what I'm talking about, okay? So the coolant goes in here out of your bottom rat hose, goes into the water pump, and then it is pushed into the block. The problem is with the way that it's set up, there's nothing that actually forces, other than the holes in the cylinder head gasket that are larger on the, well, I shouldn't say larger on the back, but it's designed to promote flow towards the back of the engine versus the front of the engine. And that's the way that the cylinder head is designed, and the pockets in the cylinder head and all that jazz, so that the coolant comes in and then flows out the top of the cylinder head, right? So as the thermostat opens, the water is coming in the bottom of the engine, through the water pump, going into the block, coming out of the head, goes out of the rad hose. Now also you do have your water out going to your heater core, so that also is going to keep water moving a little bit, so it goes, but that goes out of the engine back into the basically bottom rad hose, because it hooks up right here, right? Hooks up right here. Hopefully you can see that. So there is constant flow there, and then on a 12 valve, a P-pump 12 valve, you're going to have a bypass line, which is just like a steam line that goes from right here, comes around and goes into here. And that's a steam thing more than coolant flow. Do you need that? No. Should you keep it? Also, yes. So I personally like them. I don't care if you even don't have the proper valves. I personally like them, but teach his own. But basically, there's nothing that makes the engine flow the coolant from going in the block and then going back. There's nothing that makes the coolant actually go to the back of the engine and then come up through the cylinder head. Because I think what a lot of people think is that the coolant goes in the block, goes up the cylinder head and comes out. It does not do that. There's nothing that actually does that. So basically the theory in the coolant bypass, because the coolant bypass, for you guys that don't know, goes right here. Goes right there in the back of the block. So it's going to take coolant from here, and then your line will come up here, comes along. So it goes into your top rad hose, goes through the rad, gets cooled in the rad, right? Cooled in the rad, and then goes back down into your engine again. But that promotes flow from front to back in the engine, right? Make sense? Now, lots of people say, oh, well, what about pressure? At temperature, when the temperature gets really high, the pressure goes higher, right? Because as you boil coolant, your pressure goes higher. And that's what you're trying to avoid. Now that's the reason they run a 180-degree thermostat in these, because most diesels are going to run 180 to a 200-degree thermostat. I personally like the 195 to 200 degree in pretty much all of the diesels myself, but then also running a coolant bypass 90% of the time. It just depends on what you're doing. But that's the theory behind it, is that the coolant has that's the theory behind it, is nothing makes the coolant flow from front to back on the engine, right? So making it do that helps you immensely, I think, because you're gonna now equalize temperature from cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus it being the hottest cylinder being 6, 5, 4, 3, you know, as it comes up, right? Which you don't want. That's the reason these things, well, in general, inline 6 engines, 5 and 6 are usually the cylinders that have problems because they're the ones that run hot. Now that said, like when we're rebuilding them, we actually put a little bit more clearance in 5 and 6 than we do with the rest of the cylinders for that reason. But if you're running a coolant bypass, you actually don't need to do that. We still do because most people don't want to buy a coolant bypass. But running the coolant bypass, especially, you know, you're talking on a new engine, you're going to tow heavy with it, any of that type of stuff. My opinion, it's a cheap insurance. Because, you know, rebuild one of these engines, let's say it's $5,000 to rebuild one of these engines. Let's just argument's sake, it's $5,000 to rebuild one of these engines. One of these kits is like, okay, I'm going Canadian dollars, but they're probably like $365 US, probably $500, $510 Canadian. Is you stuck on the side of the road after you've been towing worth $500? To me, it's not. My time is worth more than the $500 stuck on the side of the road. Plus, I have to bring my truck. I got to get my truck home. I got my trailer home. The wife's mad because we're now broke down on the side of the road, and I'm not going where I'm going if I happen to be doing it myself. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things. That's how I explain to everybody. When you're buying parts, doing stuff like this to your trucks, to me, do what you need to do to make the best product that you can afford to do. Now, do you have to do this? No, you do not have to do a coolant bypass. Does it help? Yes, it does help because it promotes flow where the block is not getting flow in the factory setup. So, now that said, in an industrial application, on a 12 valve, on a lot, I shouldn't say all of them, but even on some of the, like the 6.7s and all that stuff, but industrial stuff, they actually do pull coolant out of that back frost plug. There's no frost plug there. There's actually a plate that bolts on just like this, that coolant flows through constantly, which promotes flow to the back cylinder. If Cummins did it, and it's not starving the cylinder head, there's constant flow, not on a thermostat or a pressure valve. And it didn't starve that cylinder head. Imagine that. Anyways, take it as you may. That's what I got for you on this one. Watch the video, watch out for the video coming up when we're installing this bad boy. And like, subscribe, hit me down in the comments, and remember, it's not rocket science.